안녕하세요. 여러분 모두 만나서 반갑습니다. 여러분과 함께하게 되어서 영광입니다. 제 프레젠테이션 잘 들어주세요. 지금부터 저는 영어로 말하겠습니다. So thank you for coming today, and we will try as quickly and as effectively as possible to give a review of the 2023 World Cup. Keep moving. Keep it going. Just keep moving. Get to the contents. So again, these will be the contents, looking at the squad, the World Cup information, training summary in Korea and Australia, the game preparation, then we'll have our World Cup physical data that will be presented from my physical coach, Hyung-kyu. Then we'll have a look at the possibilities or the learn effect that we have had after this World Cup. And just before we start, it is a little bit maybe difficult or strange for me because the World Cup now seems so long ago, and the focus was after the World Cup to look forward, and that as a coach, that's what I'm always about. So yes, reflection, learn the lessons, look at the mistakes that were made, try to correct those mistakes for the future. But I live in the here and now, so my focus is always on what's coming and not looking in the past. But obviously it's very important to have a review and to reflect. And this review actually took place within the KFA around about 3 months ago. And the review that we made or presented for the KFA itself was a little bit more ruthless and direct than it will be today. Because a lot of the things I will be addressing today for sure, but there are certain things that are just for internal affairs. And when I'm reviewing and reflecting and looking at what happened, whether we're successful or not, the first person I start with is always myself. So that self-reflection as a coach is always very, very vital. And sometimes you have to be really, really hard with yourself. But obviously it's about improving and making moves to go forward. And that is always my aim. I want to be a better coach tomorrow than I am today. And I've obviously, over the years now, experienced so many coaches' conferences where I've participated or I've given a lecture. But it's always important, again, that we pay attention and that we are really focusing on the most important things. And I ask myself the question every time I visit a conference, what did I take home with me? So hopefully we can give you some information and some aspects today that you can really utilize and use. And also the presentation from Michael, there's a lot of data in there, there's a lot of information that can be and hopefully will be used in your own teams, your own clubs, or wherever. Okay, so 시작해요. So just looking at the full squad, obviously based on performance, WK League, foreign teams, also our underage teams. But again, you see that we have or had a large staff, which also needs to be managed. But every single member of the staff, again, was quite clear that they gave 100% for the cause. Then the final selection that we made, obviously there was a lot of hype and excitement with the addition of Casey Fair, the youngest player, the first mixed race player, all these things that were going on behind the scenes. That I try to keep her away from all this and just so she could focus on the most important aspect, and that's playing. And obviously, I think you still remember and you know very well the group that we had was a very, and I said this right after the draw, this is a very tricky group. We can get out of it, but it's going to be difficult. And we spent a lot of time analysing each individual team, and especially, for example, for me, it was a little bit easier to analyse the German team. But I also had a scout in Germany following the German team, but also then sent a personal scout then to have a look at Morocco and Colombia. So we tried to really do as much groundwork as we possibly could and not just rely on videos. But this was probably the World Cup that had the greatest expectation on this team. And that was based on the last few years, because the team had definitely shown that they are capable of getting really good results against top teams, getting to the final of the Asian Cup for the first time in their history. So the expectations from everybody, from us, from you, from the KFA, from the media, were high. But that was also a thing that we have to then see, can we match these expectations? Are the players ready to match these expectations? And obviously we'll come up to the analysis in a couple of minutes, but we see the results, and they were very disappointing in the first two games, where we can then definitely then say we didn't match our own expectations. And then when you're analysing, okay, so we didn't fulfill our expectations, why not? And that was obviously then the analysis that we did in detail within the KFA. So again, just an overview of the timeline. But I just throw this in because this is an interesting aspect as far as I'm concerned. So I actually asked the players, when did the preparation actually start for the World Cup? So 첫번째 training 6월 18일. So 얘들아, 저는 질문 있어요. So 언제 World Cup preparation 시작해요? 야, 오늘, 야, 6월 18일. And then I said, no. So that was the first, maybe, thought mistake that a lot of players made. The World Cup preparation started in February 2022 on the day that we beat Australia. And that was my expectation. We start straight away. We qualified with the victory over Australia. That's when I start my World Cup preparation. But I'll come back to this point later on. So let's move on. Where we have the training summary. Just keep it moving, Steve. Again, just focusing on our attacking areas, defending, going through the phases that Michael also just presented. We have the ball, we lose the ball, we win the ball, and our defensive organisation. Transitions. Keep moving. So just highlighting some of the training sessions that we had. Again, speed of play exercise, so we're trying to move the ball as quickly as possible, creating overloads in the zones. Vertical play, so 전진 pass, 중요해요. 첫 번째 생각 앞으로. Where we just cut off areas so that the exercise itself coaches the player. The coach can take a bit of a back seat because the exercise is coaching. Yeah, okay. So here we have an exercise called Müller Ball, named after Michael. And again, it's about quick transition, speed of play, orientation. Switching play, and then we do a lot of exercises in tight areas to really put them under pressure. They've got to make their decision much faster, not much time, not much space. So 시간 없어요, 공간 없어요. 빨리 생각해요, 빨리 판단하세요. So in pressing situation where again we try to get the opponents onto one side, cutting off areas of the pitch again to really force the issue. Again, another pressing situation from a static situation, goal kick. Where again, when we attack them with two strikers, the two centre-backs, we try to get them into straight lines instead of a curved run. Then we did a few sessions with the boys team where we trained together, and the boys were really, really good, just to put us under more physicality, more pressure, because we know that when we play and face Colombia, they are very, very physical. So we're trying to highlight the preparation that we try to go into as much detail as possible. Again here, creating overloads in tight area, defenders pressing to get that aggression, nice. And then being able to deal with that pressure, because again, we know that we're facing a very, very strong team with Colombia. So now we're in Australia, we have again setting up a counter-attacking situation. Again, having to think very fast, react very quickly. And again, really making those decisions, creating those overloads, using that overload, and then making your final decision. So here we have a 10v8 situation where two players come alive if the attacking team loses the ball, which will then create a 10v10 or 11v11. Or I can play the ball in myself, a second ball, because now I'm looking at our attacking play. Are we attacking organised? And if I see that we're not organised when we attack, then I'll play that second ball in. And again, forcing that transition, that fast transition. And this is, again, one of the points when you're studying the Women's World Cup, and that came through in Michel's presentation. The intensity of the matches was so high. The women's football is developing at such a level, you cannot afford to be thinking of 천천히, 내려 pass, wing pass, 천천히, 안 돼요. Also 지금 안 돼요. Again, just highlighting a static situation, pressing situation, applying a high pressure, a high press. Maybe the last. Let's show this and then get to the analysis of the game after this one. Okay, just working on our defensive play. Let's move it on, Steve, please. And again, just looking at the attacking patterns that we try to implement. So at times they'll be unopposed, and then we'll add defenders. This is just sowing the seed. Steve, let's get to the analysis. I think that's enough training clips. Okay. So hopefully you can see in the training clips, we had a few more, but I think that you've got the drift of what we're trying to do, that we were really well prepared. As prepared as we could be in those 5 weeks that we had, although the preparation should have started a year earlier. Okay, so we're going into the game knowing we're up against a very physical team that came runners-up in their competition behind the US. So we started well. So now just in this screenshot here, so they surprised us a little bit to start with, that they left 4 players up front, meaning that we have to have an overload at the back, meaning that we have to have 5 players in that area. But what we didn't realise and really utilise well, that we had an overload ourselves then in midfield with the 3v2. But I was still quite pleased with the first 20-25 minutes. We were in the game. It was a tough match, very physical, but we could also sense, and we could sense that there was a little bit of, or certain players, not everybody, but certain players a little bit too nervous, unfortunately, in this first game. I can understand, of course, being nervous, a bit excited, first game, but it went too far. So again, for example, this situation, we win the ball. Okay, the first application was not the high press, the aggressive press, that came in the second action. But we need now then to not to foul, to be alive, to be alert, because the free kick basically then starts the situation that leads to the penalty. And one of the traits of the teams at the World Cup, or the teams that did well or got out of the group or advanced, often is after a set piece, whether it's a free kick or a corner, the second phase is really, really good. Yeah, so maybe even the second phase is more dangerous than the first one. And this is the situation. So again, you can see the ball's bobbling around in the box. Nobody can really get hold of it to clear it, and then the shot and the penalty. So we go a goal down, although at that time of the game it was a pretty even match. And again, we can just highlight, there's always, just hold it, Steve, when we concede a goal, it's not really, oh, you're at fault or you're at fault. It's always a team thing. So we have to look at the defensive organisation. Were we close enough then to help each other? Or would it have been possible maybe even the phase just before this clip, that we can tackle, the slide tackle without fouling? But then we need to support each other a little bit more, get closer to each other. So we didn't protect our goal well enough. We could have protected it much, much better and much more effectively. And then unfortunately, then the end station now, the only player that can save the situation is our goalkeeper. And unfortunately, she misjudged her position and obviously misjudged the flight of the ball. And now you're 2-0 down. So now, obviously, it's difficult to get back in, but we do have one really, really good chance just before half-time to score. And we have to score. These are the moments we have to score. And again, just for us all, yeah, the margins are so small at this level. You make one mistake, you get punished. They make a mistake or we have some good play, now we have to punish them. And obviously we don't capitalize on this 100% goal scoring chance. So these are the moments, obviously, that in-game management as a coach. What do? How can I affect the game? Then we go into half-time, 2-0 down, first match of the World Cup. Everybody excited, really good preparation in the weeks that we had, and now everything looks like looks like a disaster because we're 2-0 down. So then we try to reorganize, change a couple of things, change the system. Even then, now with 2-0 down, saying, okay, if they leave 4 players up, we have to go player for player. Then it's a 4v4 at the back. We have to take that risk because we need a goal to get back into the game. So again, just a few tactical changes to try and affect the game in a positive way. But we were not able to find a way through, and all credit then to Colombia because they also changed their system at half-time. They went into a much more defensive structure and just let us come to try and soak up the pressure. Something that in all of the games previously leading up to the World Cup, they had never done before. Let's move on. So now, the disappointment, obviously, now it's the psychological aspect more. We've lost the game, and this was an experience that I'd not had with the team in my now 4 years with them. They were so down after this game. It was so difficult then to pick them up. Psychologically, I had individual talks. We tried to bring up the atmosphere within the training, but we had to look at the critical moments that we had against Colombia. But at the end of the day, after a good start, we basically gift them 2 goals. A penalty because first of all, we give a foul away, which wasn't necessary. Don't clear the ball. And then obviously the second goal, just a row of individual or team mistakes. So now it's about picking them up, but it was a very difficult task. But of course the expectation should be for South Korea that we are beating Morocco. Okay, so we went into the game with our structure, a little bit of a different structure, but then we realised again that Morocco had changed their system. That they played with the number 8, who was more of a false, like a shadow 9, dropping off into the space behind our midfield or in front of our defence. But we spotted this pretty early and had to make then the tactical change with bringing Cho back into the centre to compensate for that. But in this first half against Morocco was definitely the worst game that the team has played since I've been coach. Again, we were not aggressive enough. We gave the opponents at times too much space, or when we had possession, we were then just too hectic. So now the opponents have had a throw-in. We have a 3v3 in a wide area. This is where we obviously need to be really aggressive. So again, talking about preparation, after this clip, we'll show you a training clip because we trained these situations. And that's again for me a signal that we were not concentrating enough, we were not balanced enough, that we recognized out now this situation that we've done maybe in the 4 years 200-300 times, maybe over-exaggerating, but we do the exercise that you'll see in a moment every training camp. And now we have the situation. Identify this situation, girls. Trust your own ability, trust yourselves, and let's defend it. So again, 2 passives you can cross, and the striker gets in front of Heiji. Instead of Heiji being in front of the striker, to be able to clear the ball. Again, just passive defending, and you cannot defend passively in the World Cup. a 3v3 diagonal match. So when the ball is now in the left side, the yellows are pressing in a wide area. That's simulating a wide area. So again, we want aggression, we want organisation to stop the red team getting into the central zone that they can score. That's where the goal is. And you can see here that the yellows do a good job and actually get a shot on goal. So every training situation or every training form that I choose, it's always based on the 11v11 game. Things that can happen, obviously not identically, but they will happen. They will happen in training, in the games, and we need to train these moments. Yeah. So again, it's now getting the transfer from the training pitch onto the big pitch. Now it's World Cup. Now we need to get at least a draw against Morocco to have a chance of qualifying. So again, we did have a couple of moments in the first half. Second half was definitely better, but not the way we can play. So we've basically negated the tactic from Morocco. So the number 8 is now no problem. But again, we just failed then to get that decisive goal that we needed to get back into the game. And a goal makes such a difference at this level and for the confidence of the players, that's obvious. So again, obviously one of the measures would be getting the ball into the box for Unson, who's obviously got a big advantage in the air. And she's normally so reliable, but also then in this situation, you can just see that there's a disbalance here. Normally that's a great ball for Unson. She'll put that away 9 times out of 10. But on this particular day, we were basically, especially like I said earlier in the first half, just not the team that I know. So we now played 2, lost 2, and obviously we think straight after the game that we are definitely out. But we still had a very small chance if we beat Germany 5-0 and Morocco lose. And that was basically what I was really holding on to, because again, after losing, not playing well in the first half, again, the second half we were definitely the better team, but it wasn't a great game. Now, what do we cling on to? How can I affect the game? How can I reach the players one more time? Because we have to play Germany, who are normally the strongest team. But before the World Cup, they were ranked number 2 in the world. So everybody's disappointed, everybody's down, but we still have that small chance. And obviously then we witnessed the game England against China, where England win 6-1 or 6-0. And then you obviously, as a coach now, it's in the back of your head. Hey, I've got to get the girls together. We've got to get together. We've got to maybe change a couple of things, but I've got to get the atmosphere. It's got to change overnight because we only have a short turnover. And what we don't want, what we definitely don't want, is to get hammered like China did against England, because the Germans are definitely capable of it. They showed that against Morocco, winning 6-0. But again, without getting too personal and revealing too much inside information, you obviously analyse the game in its own context. And I realise we need more power in midfield. I have to have a player that can run and run and run for this game. And they have to run. And luckily then, because of the training that we had done previously, before the camp started, with Yi Youngju was now, again, also after 2 weeks of being in Australia, she'd had now maybe 5-6 weeks in all, because I trained with her individually 3 weeks or 4 weeks before we came in. I thought, now I've got to get Youngju on the pitch. She's not played for a year, that was the risk, but she looked powerful. And then the second decisive decision was, now it's time for Casey to start. She's the youngest player that's ever played in a World Cup, but she's our fastest and fittest player with 16. Just keep it going. So obviously we know the Germans are a very strong team, runners up. at the Euros, the best header of the ball in women's football with Alex Pop. Again, overloading the central areas because they have very skillful players on the ball that can have normally no problem in tight areas to play. And obviously then looking at in the wide areas, they're capable of exploiting teams, especially now because they had Svenja Hood playing on the right side. Svenja is a world-class player, normally midfielder or striker, but had to play right full-back. But I was convinced in this game that we could achieve something if we get our defensive structure and everybody is really mentally prepared for it. And forget the first two games. We have to put that past us. And that's why I just said right at the start of this presentation, I learn, I reflect, and then it's gone. I cannot live in the past. And even though Germany have very strong players, I knew and know that they don't have world-class defenders. They have world-class in other areas of the pitch, but definitely not in defence. So the structure that we wanted then was with Casey up front, and obviously we wanted to make sure that when they go long for Pop that we covered that. So Youngju could try and maybe counter the flick on, and the two central defenders don't have to come out. And trying to obviously avoid forward passes if possible. That means, again, a lot of intense running in midfield and timing. And everybody's got to be working together, something that Michel highlighted on earlier in his presentation when we press. So it was clear what we wanted to do. Everybody was ready for it because also short turnover, but we'd gone through every possible system that Germany could play the day before. So we were prepared. Okay, keep going. So again, at times we have to switch where Youngju can drop in and become a back three if necessary. And obviously later on in the game, we actually did that when Unson came on. So we're in a middle low block, trying to keep it as tight as possible. But trying to apply that forward pressure with Garam and Casey and Youngju in midfield. But we wanted to be active as well. We obviously knew we want to win the game. We have to score. And even though Casey should have scored in that moment, it was a signal for us we had a chance. And it was also a shock for Germany because obviously they expected us to be maybe too passive and just basically play the game through and they could win and advance. And we see that the German defence not organised, but we kept the ball well, and that automatically then you will create when we keep the ball. And again, working hard to get behind the ball. Can we press directly, yes or no? And if not, get back. So this is where the only situation where Yuri lost Svenny Hood. Yuri comes inside instead of just staying in the wide area, and we can't stop the cross. And obviously Alex Pop is unbelievable in the air. And again, we allow the cross. This was the moment that's when we get a bit of fortune, and that was the moment where now Unson has to come into play. And then we took the threat from Alexander Pop out of the game, and obviously the Germans are desperate now. They need to win to qualify. And again, these are the moments where you just now have to hang on, make sure that you're there, that you're blocking shots or you're tight on your opponents, something that we should have done last week against China from a free kick but didn't, which cost us the game in the end effect. But this situation now, the girls really worked so hard, and in this game, that was the true South Korean national team. So just before Hyungyu goes through the physical data, I just wanted to make another comment, reflecting on Michel's analysis, talking about Spain. So does that mean now that we all have to play like Spain, or can we all play like Spain? The Spanish team, or the Spanish football, is based on a clear vision that's been put into practice maybe 10, 12 years ago. And they're following that plan. Their under 17s are world champions, under 20s, now they're a national team. That is not a fluke, that is not a coincidence. That is a plan, a vision, and hard work which starts at an early age and goes through then every age group, schools, and every club. Only then can you play the way Spain play, when the foundation is already there. That's the message that, for me, that is so important. We want to improve, we want to get better, but we have to have a different foundation. To be able to play a high press or a counter press consistently, as the Spanish team did, you have to be top fit. And you are not top fit in 5 weeks. So, Hyungyu.
네, 안녕하세요. 여자축구협회팀 피지컬 코치 정영규입니다. 일단은 발표에 앞서서 저희가 이제 월드컵 조별리그 3경기에 대한 경기 피지컬 데이터를 먼저 말씀드리고, 그 다음에 결승전에 올랐던 스페인하고 영국의 고강도 러닝과 스프린트 데이터를 이제 저희 한국 대표팀의 데이터와 이제 비교를 해드리고, 거기에 대한 개인적인 견해와 어떤 부분을 기준으로 삼고 준비를 했는지 그 부분에 대해서 좀 발표를 시작하겠습니다. 먼저 이건 이제 피파에서 이제 발행한 레포트를 기반으로 한 그 데이터를 이제 가져왔고요. 여기서 이제 토탈 디스턴스는 이제 총 이동 거리를 의미하고, HIR은 이제 고강도 러닝, 그다음에 스프린트는 이제 23km/h, 그러니까 빠른 속도로 뛰는 이제 거리를 의미하는 거고요. 이 세 가지 카테고리를 가지고서 설명을 하겠습니다. 먼저 콜롬비아랑 했던 이제 경기 중에 이제 플레이한 선수들의 이제 총 토탈 디스턴스는 10만 미터 정도 되고요. 그다음에 콜롬비아는 98,000m 정도 되고, 그다음에 고강도 러닝 부분은 한국은 4,500m, 콜롬비아는 4,180m, 그다음에 스프린트는 한국은 2,200m, 콜롬비아는 1,689m 정도로 이제 나왔고요. 다음은 이제 모로코입니다. 모로코전에서는 이제 좀 이동 거리가 좀 많았어요. 이제 총 토탈 디스턴스는 13만 미터 정도. 그다음에 모로코는 11만 정도 대략. 그다음에 고강도 러닝 부분은 한국은 4,600m. 그다음에 모로코는 4,900m. 그다음에 스프린트 부분은 한국은 2,000m, 모로코는 이제 1,700m 정도 나왔고요. 뭐 이제 사실상 이제 고강도 영역이라고 하면은 저 HIR이라는 부분하고 스프린트를 더한 부분을 이제 고강도 영역이라고 하는데 그 부분을 더했을 때 한국이 뭐 한 6,600m 정도 뛰었고 이제 모로코가 한 6,700m 정도 이렇게 뛰었다라고 생각하시면 될 것 같습니다. 다음은 독일입니다. 독일전에서는 10만, 그러니까 11만 대략 11만 미터 정도 뛰었고 그 다음에 독일이 11만 한 2천 정도 뛰었고 고강도 러닝 부분은 좀 차이가 있었는데 한국은 5,359m, 독일은 4,863m, 그 다음에 스프린트 부분은 1,560m, 독일은 1,716m 정도로 이렇게 나왔습니다. 이제 앞에 조별리그 3경기에 대한 이제 고강도 영역에 대한 이제 평균을 이제 결승에 올랐던 스페인하고 이제 영국하고 이제 비교를 해봤습니다. 먼저 이제 위에 있는 뭐 그래프를 이제 굳이 뭐 볼 필요 없이 밑에 이제 써놓은 걸 보면 이제 고강도 플러스 스프린트라는 영역에서 한국은 조별리그 평균이 한 6,791m 정도 이제 뛰었고 스페인은 이제 사실상 이제 파이널이라는 점을 감안을 했을 때 뭐 피로가 누적된 부분도 있었을 거라고 예상이 되는데요. 그럼에도 불구하고 8,600m나 되는 거리를 이제 고강도 영역에서 커버를 했고 이제 잉글랜드는 7,279m 정도 거리를 커버를 했습니다. 그래서 이제 앞서서 단순하게 그냥 경기에 대한 이제 피지컬 데이터를 그냥 리뷰를 했다라고 하면 이제 그런 그 데이터를 바탕으로 저희가 이제 뭐 WK 리그에서 제공받는 뭐 제한적인 데이터겠죠. 아무래도 뭐 저희가 받았던 것에서 이제 추려온 거고 그 다음에 이제 A 매치를 했던 데이터, 그 다음에 2019년도 월드컵 자료, 그 다음에 2023년도 월드컵에서 이제 한국에 대한 데이터가 어느 정도 되는지를 이제 그래프상으로 이제 비교를 했어요. 근데 이제 이 그래프를 이제 보는 이제 관점에서 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 뭐 이제 아무래도 우리 고강도 영역이라는 부분은 이제 경쟁이 좀 심하고 좀 더 수준 높은 무대를 갈수록 이제 그 선수의 체력적인 준비가 됐냐 안 됐냐를 떠나서 높은 수준에서의 치러지는 경기들을 봤을 때 일반적으로 아무래도 낮은 수준의 경기보다는 그 데이터, 고강도 영역에서의 데이터가 많이 이제 체력 수준이 요구된다라는 걸 이제 그래프상으로 좀 볼 수 있을 것 같아요. 그래서 뭐 제가 특정 포지션만 이제 가져왔지만 물론 WK 리그에서도 뭐 특정 경기에서는 뭐 저기 앞에 나와 있는 데이터가 아니더라도 더 많이 나온 데이터도 있을 수 있어요. 근데 하지만 평균적으로 봤을 때는 아무래도 좀 더 국제 수준으로 경기 갈수록 고강도 영역에서의 피지컬 데이터가 더 많이 나온다라고 이제 판단을 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 그래서 이제 저희가 이제 월드컵을 앞두고 이제 리허설격으로 2023년도 1월 달에 이제 아놀드 클라크컵이라는 이제 대회를 다녀왔는데요. 이제 그거에 앞서서 대회를 치르기 전에 선수들의 체력 수준이 어떻게 되는지 이제 유산소 능력을 이제 테스트한 이제 결과고요. 앞에 보이는 이제 그래프를 보시면 동그라미 쳐 있는 부분이 그 보통 일반적으로 세계적으로 이제 국제적인 팀에서의 축구 선수들의 유산소 능력이 어느 정도냐, 최대 유산소 스피드가 어느 정도냐라고 했을 때 일반적으로 18.5km/h에서 21km/h로 이제 포진이 돼 있다. 그리고 1월 달에 테스트한 한국 여자 대표팀 선수의 이제 범위는 16km/h에서 20km/h로 이제 포진이 돼 있다라는 건데, 뭐 단순하게 이제 수치를 봤을 때 속도가 높을수록 당연히 유산소 능력이 이제 좋다라고 이제 생각하시면 될 것 같고, 그 편차를 보더라도 뭐 세계적으로 이제 국가대표팀 수준의 여자 축구 선수들이 수준의 어떤 편차와 한국 대표팀 선수의 어떤 편차를 봤을 때 우리는 편차가 좀 크다라는 걸 좀 알 수 있고, 그다음에 이때가 이제 뭐 시기적인 것도 이제 중요할 텐데 1월이다 보니까 이제 체력적으로 선수들이 이제 쉬다가 이제 준비해야 되는 시기이기도 하고, 그런 걸 좀 감안해서 이제 보셨으면 좋겠고요. 이제 일단은 제가 월드컵을 준비하는 데 있어서 이때 수준이 어느 정도인지 책정을 해서 이제 기준을 잡을 필요가 있었고, 이걸 바탕으로 얼마만큼 우리가 끌어올려야 될지 기준 설정을 위해서 이렇게 테스트를 진행을 했습니다. 다음은 이 자료는 2022년도 이제 여자 유로 대회에 나온 이제 자료를 이제 한국 대표팀 이제 자료와 이제 비교를 해본 거예요. 그래서 이제 뭐 일단은 총 이동 거리는 제외하고 저희가 이제 이거는 이제 앞서서는 유산소 능력의 데이터를 이제 측정을 했다라고 하면, 이게 고강도 영역에서는 우리 선수들 수준이 어느 정도일까를 이제 봤는데요. 유로에 나왔던 이제 모든 나라들의 토탈 이제 고강도 영역과 스프린트, 그거를 이제 평균적으로 이제 나타낸 건데요. 지금 노란색 점으로 표시되어 있는 게 이제 한국이에요. 그러면은 골키퍼까지 포함해서 11명의 선수가 경기를 치렀을 때 고강도 영역의 거리를 다 더했을 때 한 5,000m 정도 나온다라고 이제 보시면 되고요. 근데 다른 유럽권 국가들을 봤을 때 뭐 독일 같은 경우에는 거의 뭐 8,000m 수준, 아까 앞에서 자료를 보여드렸던 것과 마찬가지로 뭐 높은 수준의 고강도 영역을 커버를 하고 있고, 꼭 독일이 아니더라도 그 밑에 국가를 봤을 때 유럽 국가들에 비해서 한국 선수들이 어떤 고강도 영역에서의 커버하는 거리가 좀 부족하고, 그만큼 속도가 많이 나지 않는구나라고 이제 봐주시면 될 것 같아요. 그래서 일단 유산소 능력, 뭐 다시 쉽게 말하면 사실 유산소 능력이 회복 능력이라고 할 수 있는데요. 이제 회복 능력은 어차피 저희가 그런 테스트를 바탕으로 거기에 해당하는 속도에 대한 부분을 저희가 자꾸 올리기 위해서 훈련 안에 이제 넣으면 되는데, 이제 스프린트 훈련이라는 거는 사실상 이게 뭐 대표팀 훈련이라는 것 자체가 간헐적으로 이제 소집을 하다 보니까 한 번에 이 많은 양을 할 수가 없어요. 왜냐하면 고강도 영역은 그만큼 많이 하면 할수록 어떤 뭐 오버 트레이닝을 통한 뭐 부상의 위험도 높을 수밖에 없고, 하지만 꼭 필요하다라는 부분을 다시 말씀드리고 싶고, 그러면 우리가 이제 훈련 안에서 이걸 어떻게 최대 속도에 노출시킬 수 있을까라고 하면 당연히 어떤 공간이 필요할 거고, 그 공간이 필요하다라는 건 결국 작은 사이즈의 어떤 훈련보다는 점진적으로 좀 더 큰 사이즈로 갔을 때 뛸 수 있는 거리가 있기 때문에 좀 더 빠른 속도로 뛰어야 될 수도 있을 거고, 그 다음에 어떤 동기부여나 어떤 경쟁, 강한 경쟁을 바탕으로 한다라고 했을 때는 경기에서 좀 더 최대 속도에 많이 노출될 거고, 근데 이제 이 연구에서 이제 말하듯이 사실상 90분 경기를 뛴다고 하더라도 최대 속도에 노출되는 경우가 사실 되게 드물어요. 특정 포지션을 빼고는. 뭐 카운터 어택을 나간다고 하더라도 뭐 공격수나 사이드에 있는 선수들, 근데 또 그런 선수들조차도 뭐 매 경기에 최대 속도에 또 노출되는 건 아니거든요. 그렇다라고 했을 때 훈련에서도 최대 속도에 노출이 안 되고 경기에서도 최대 속도에 노출이 안 된다라고 하면 결국은 우리가 이제 속도를 내기 위해서는 햄스트링에 어떤 강한 자극이 이제 들어가는데, 내가 큰 속도에서 단련이 되어 있지 않다, 근육이 거기에 자극이 되어 있지 않다라고 하면 어떤 특정한 상황에서 그 이상의 속도를 낸다라고 하면 당연히 그거는 햄스트링에 큰 부하가 걸릴 거고, 그 자극이 어떤 부상으로서 또 연결이 될 수가 있거든요. 그래서 우리는 이제 훈련 안에서 이런 부분을 꼭 신경을 쓰고 모니터링 해야 된다라는 걸 좀 말씀드리고 싶고, 이런 부분을 이제 저희가 이제 월드컵을 준비하면서도 좀 중요하게 생각했던 부분입니다. 그렇다면 이제 얼마만큼 해야 될까라는 이제 의문이 있을 수 있는데요. 보통 앞에 이제 연구가 된 결과를 보면 사실상 우리는 이제 빠른 속도로 많이 뛰고 스프린트를 많이 하게 됐을 때 햄스트링의 어떤 부상의 그 위험률, 그 위험 요소 때문에 사실 그 요소를 피하기 위해서 스프린트 양을 줄이고 스프린트를 하지 않는 이런 경우를 사실 많이 만들 수 있거든요. 근데 이거를 다시 바꿔 말하면 내가 빠른 속도로 뛸 수 있다는 가정하에 그거의 한 90% 수준으로 뛴다라고 하면 그 선수한테 느껴지는 부하는 사실상 큰 부하는 아니거든요. 그래서 이제 결국은 이런 부분이 햄스트링의 발전을 위해서 강화를 위해서도 우리가 좀 필요한 부분인데 여기 연구에서 말하는 거는 상대적 속도, 그러니까 최대 속도의 상대적 속도가 85% 이하에서 이제 훈련했던 것과 95% 이상의 속도에서 이제 노출됐을 때 오히려 빠른 속도에서 훈련했을 때 부상 확률이 더 감소했다라는 걸 이제 말을 해주고 있습니다. 오른쪽에 있는 이제 U자형 그래프를 보면 이제 가로선을 봤을 때 이제 주당 횟수, 스프린트의 횟수를 이제 나타내는데요. 오히려 스프린트라는 거는 너무 안 해도 문제, 너무 많이 해도 당연히 문제겠죠. 오버 트레이닝이 걸릴 수 있으니까. 그럼 이제 얼마만큼 해야 되냐라고 했을 때 이 연구에서는 6에서 한 10회가 적당하더라라고 이제 말을 해주고 있습니다. 근데 말 그대로 이거 이제 하나의 연구일 뿐이니까 여기서 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 부분은 뭐냐면 선수들의 어떤 최대 속도에 대한 모니터링을 통해서 우리가 얼마만큼 해야 되는 거는 당연히 팀마다 이제 상황은 다르겠죠. 그런데 중요한 것은 이 선수의 최대 속도에 우리가 노출시켜주고 있느냐, 훈련을 통해서 그런 부분이 체크가 돼야 될 것 같고, 그런 부분들을 통해서 우리가 좀 더 속도감 있는 경기를 하기 위해서는 좀 중요한 부분이 되지 않을까 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다. 일단은 여기까지가 이제 제가 피지컬 데이터에서 준비한 부분이고요. 저는 이제 그만 물러나도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, Steve. Okay. So we just have a few more minutes. We just have an outlook. So what's coming now, this presentation, they are my personal thoughts and my suggestions. This is not a KFA philosophy. These are the things that I have expressed to the KFA after a disappointing World Cup. How could we then progress for the future? So we had this stat also last year in the conference, where you can see we only have, at that time, 1,400 registered players compared to Australia and Japan. So basically looking at what do we have and what can we do with what we have. And then the school system, the elementary, how many elementary schools playing soccer, middle, high, university, and obviously then the 8 teams in the WK League. So again, as a pretty large nation, there's not that many, or not that much actually going on. So looking at the average age at the World Cup, so we were with 28.9 years old, but if you subtract Yebin and Casey, our average age would have been 30 or just over. So the oldest team in the World Cup. Yeah. And so again, the question is, why is that? So then you look at the system, the players are coming into senior football after their university, so they're already 22, 23, maybe even 24. There's no, apart from the schools, there's no underage leagues, there's no pathway actually for young players to be able to play in senior football. So then we're looking at the next slide, Steve. So here we can see 18, under 20s, under 17s. And this is, again, where we have to criticise ourselves, because we don't always have an under 20 team, and we don't always have an under 17 team. It's basically more then when there's a competition coming up, then we all of a sudden create an under 17 or a 20 team out of nothing. And that is the only association that I know that does this. So my suggestion is that we have regular camps with our underage teams, on a regular basis, whether they have a tournament or not, that our young players are being coached when they come into the national headquarters, that we have a chance then to monitor their progress, and that we can follow them over the next few years. And then going into the senior, that we need physical coaches at all the teams, also maybe even in the underage teams. that we can then really have a clear structure and a clear pathway physically to stop maybe, obviously, injury prevention is also important. And I repeat myself, these are suggestions. So again, another suggestion, every WK League team has GPS, meaning you can track every training session and you can track every match, and then we share the data. The data is not always 100% correct, but at least we have an idea, and it would help then obviously in our preparation then for competitions or matches that are coming up to know exactly what the players have been doing in the previous 4 to 6 or to 8 weeks. So developing a clear vision and philosophy for women's football from grassroots on, again having a clear idea. So again, if we use Spain, or you can even take Japan, why are they successful? Because they have a clear strategy, a clear vision that's been going on for years. But also Japan, about 2 years ago, realised they need to change their league structure, to make it even more professional, because they could also see they're dropping behind. And now they're able, through that restructuring and spending more time together at underage level, to produce players. And they even send their second team to the Asian Games and they win the gold medal. And again, more emphasis on coaching. We obviously want to be successful at tournaments, from the A team down to our underage teams. But especially at underage level, we need to be focusing on their training and not just coming in for a tournament. I've already said that. We can also have the situation where we might be looking for dual nationality players, i.e., example, Casey. A clear age-based curriculum which is going through the schools, into the university, then into the WK League, into the national team. That we are working really together and off the same template, everybody in their own age group. But to have an alignment and cohesion all together in women's football. Okay, so the next, I'll try and go through, again, these are my suggestions. This is not the KFA. I've presented this to the KFA. They can say, yes, Colin, that's great, or we can do everything, or they can say, no, I'm not interested. So every FIFA window will be used for the A national team, even in the next coming months where there's now no tournaments, but we need to build a new team for the World Cup. And again, to have a longer preparation for tournaments if we're not getting the base, the foundation right. If the foundation is correct and everybody's working together and we are starting from a higher point, then you don't need a 2-month preparation. Yeah. But at the moment, I would say we definitely do. So again, the team was too old. We have tried to, or we are rectifying that in the Asian Games, now in the Olympic qualification. We had a lot of younger players that made their debuts, but also performed at a very, very good level. So there's definitely hope there. And as I said, starting preparation for the Women's World Cup 2027 immediately. That started basically after the last World Cup. But we need everybody together. We see now, of course, in the last 2 competitions, where again we could say, oh yeah, but you didn't qualify. The performance, I'll come to that in a moment, but the performance at the Asian Games and now the Olympia was a very good performance in my eyes. The players performed well, they got the maximum out of themselves. We were unlucky against North Korea in the Asian Games, but we can see that Japan, Australia, China, North Korea, they are top teams. And then you have nations, for example, Philippines, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, that are investing so much in their underage structure and in their national teams. We have to be looking behind us. We want to be looking forward, so we have a slogan, moving forward, but we need to be looking behind us if we're not careful. So we need long-term thinking, and then the last point would be to have a home-based training for our national team players. Then in the future, when the new training centre is open, that's definitely something that we should consider, that we bring our elite players in together, basically at least twice a month for a training session. And again, I'm trying to speed up now. They're just suggestions from Colleen Bell, that's all. So regular training camps in Europe for our A-team and underage team, because Europe is beginning now to really advance even further in women's football. We establish a future team, that would be another point. So, for example, I'll just give you a quick example, I don't want to keep you too long, but we had a few months ago, there was the Under-20 World Cup, and Inson, is she still here? Yeah. So, what happened to all of those players after the World Cup? So some of them are in my squad, but I don't know where the rest of them are. And again, this could be a future to have a football academy for girls at the new training centre, sponsorship, all these things could be possible, but I want to go on to the next one. Just translate it. So looking now at the senior football, I've already mentioned certain aspects. But again, this could be pretty controversial, but I honestly believe we have to drop the draft system. There should be no restriction on elite players. When I'm talking about elite players, that they are able to play senior football when they're 16, 17, 18. The draft system is, as far as my opinion, is not necessary. We are not the USA where you've got thousands of girls playing soccer. We need to get our elite players playing senior football as quickly as possible, which would then result in our national team progressing and being much, much younger. One match per week to give the coaches more time and the players more time to prepare for the next match, meaning that we can train at a higher intensity during the week. That's not possible when you're playing Tuesday and Friday. You have to obviously then taper the training. And 22 matches max for an 8-league team, 8-league division. That's enough. Okay, so I want to finish on a positive. These are some of the young players that are in contention or have already played in the national team, and there's definitely more. So these girls could be the face or the faces of the new future, new generation for South Korean women's football. But I believe as a coach, we are in a privileged situation that we can work with young people. So that means when I'm working with my players every single day, I want the best for them. Everything I do is player-centered. And I've said this so often, I'll just say it again. I love this country. I love working here. But we need to make sure that we are giving always 100% for our players. I'm not saying that we're not, but that has to be a minimum. Yeah, we have talented young players and we need to give them the best possible education and chance that they can have. So my last 2 points and I'll be finished. So a few weeks ago we had our under-13 girls in Arju and they played against Japan, two matches. So I watched the matches. We unfortunately lost both games. And then after the second game I was talking with some of the KFA staff and just asked what was the difference? What do you think the difference was between Japan and Korea? And so then all of a sudden the technical things, maybe like tactically and technically and the decision making, it was maybe better. And I said, no, that's not it. So I looked at Japan, and obviously those girls will develop. But in this camp, they had maybe 4 or 5 really outstanding players. And maybe some of those girls will develop even more, of course. But we also had 4 or 5 outstanding players. But the factor of time, our girls come in twice a year at under 13 age, and the Japanese girls are together every single day. So the team, the women's A team, has a future, but we need to organise or reorganise. These are the last 14 fixtures that we've had together. So yes, we didn't qualify, get out of the group for the World Cup. We didn't get out of the Asian Games. We didn't get to the Olympics. Let's change the coach. That's the simple solution. Instead of thinking, why? We have played 14 matches and lost 3. The potential is there, but we need to create and adapt that we can really then not live in the past, not live in 2015, not live in 2002. What's now? So put something in place now that you can guarantee that you can be successful. So I've been criticised over the last few weeks. He's always talking about system, but he's got to win matches. We are winning matches. We need to wake up. And that's my appell today. We need to wake up. And my philosophy has always been, I'm open and honest. I take the responsibility for bad results, okay, because I'm the head coach. But if I'm taking all the responsibility, I want it done my way. Thank you. 감사합니다. So, 감사합니다. 감사합니다.